Will Hardy was asked what has impressed him the most about Keyonte George. The answer will surprise you. Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA Insider. Thanks so much for taking time to listen to Locked on Jazz today. On today's show, what Will Hardy said when he was asked by Ryan what the most impressive thing about Keyonte George's this season. It might surprise you a little bit. 9 turnovers in the first quarter by the Utah Jazz. That's kind of ugly. We'll look at them. Plus, Keyonte had another 5. So what happened there? And then is the 8th pick suddenly in play for the Utah Jazz? That's all coming up on today's show. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA Insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. And we are free. We are available on all podcasting apps. I promise you're getting your money's worth. That's all I can promise you right now. I do certainly appreciate it. And to the everydayers out there, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us and being an everyday to Locked on Jazz. I appreciate it all the time. I love Jazz Nation. Honor this position. Love bringing you the games every night. And get that, like, right now as a Jazz fan, we have the worst record in the league since the All-Star break. We just lost to a team that's not very good, and it wasn't close. I super respect you for sticking with it and being here today, and appreciate you for being here and sticking with it. And hopefully it's 2-part. 1, you love the team, and 2, you believe I'm going to bring you content that's worthwhile. And I will do my darndest to do that for you. Will Hardy got asked kind of at the end of the press conference yesterday morning, or yesterday before the game, about what has impressed him the most about Keyonte George. And his answer was super interesting. He said his brain. So that's a pretty interesting. The one that I would have gone with, that I was expecting to hear, was that Keyonte has just looked like he belongs most of the time. Maybe a little less so every now and then as he kind of seems overwhelmed and tired and fatigued. But he generally, it looks like he belongs to me, has been from day one. Like his size is right, his body's right, his athleticism's right, his moxie's right. Like, all those things look like he belongs. There's something concerning when you look at prospects. You can really see it sometimes when they come in for draft workouts, and you don't, it's clear that they don't belong. That's obvious in the first moment. So in that sense, but he actually went to brain. And this is really important for the Jazz moving forward about Keyonte. He's crazy young. And so there's a bunch of things about Keyonte that I've watched where, honestly, I've thought to myself, like, okay, I'm bothered. And then I stop and I say, okay, but he's 20 years old. And these are just maturity issues. Well, maturity is going to happen if there's a brain behind it. So that was the first thing. It's not where Will went with it. Will went somewhere else. I'll go there in a second. But to me, and I can list them, but it doesn't do any value good. There's things, and I think we've all seen them, for Keyonte's done this year as a young player, where you're watching, you're like, ugh. But he's not refined. He's 20 years old. It's why young players make mistakes. He's never really had a hard time with basketball, right? He was the number 7 recruit in the class in 2022. He went to Baylor for a year, gets drafted probably lower than he wanted at 16th. That year wasn't the most fun for him. But generally, conceptually, he's kind of rolled. This is the first time he's struggled. And so we watch him various things that we might want him to do. I got it. So the fact that Will Hardy goes to his brain leads me to believe that all the maturity issues that you might be concerned about are all going to come to fruition on the positive side of things. But then also, what I thought was really interesting that Will talked about was how much he recalls things. That they had a scrimmage the other day, and that Keyonte called a play that they hadn't run in like a month. And that he has this incredible recall of plays and actions and things of that sort. And if what Will's talking about is true, that will accelerate his growth. Will's point is that the NBA is all about pattern recognition. And really that's offense in the NBA. It's pattern recognition. You know, they do this, I do this. They do that, I do these. That's the way the game works. And so if he's able to have this kind of recall, plus the fact he watches a tremendous amount of NBA, which is rare these days. There aren't a lot of kids that are watching the NBA. You think about if you have my daughter's 20 and 19 and she's a huge fan, which means that she watches Instagram and House of Highlights, and she's probably watched 2 games all year, maybe none now that she's not home. She probably hasn't sat through an entire NBA game all season long since she's gone to college. And yet she's a huge fan. She can tell you everything that's going on. She probably can tell you most of the standings. She probably knows what's, and knows the league. But that's how they're absorbing the league in this day and age. And so most of the players aren't watching full games, aren't watching to try to figure guys out, aren't trying to. It's why Taylor Hendricks' comment about Jaden McDaniels earlier this year, that's who he's modeling, was an interesting comment. So this is really a positive comment from Will, because I think it will lead to maturity. It will accelerate his growth. And then if you recall, and I'll do it again because we did it in the middle of the year, kind of offhand, unless you're a really diehard everydayer, love you for that. I did a little thing where I looked at guards and when they became efficient in the pick and roll. And it was, if I remember correctly, like it was something crazy like 5,000 pick and roll plays before you actually became efficient. Well, that goes to the pattern recognition that Will Hardy's talking about, that the league is about pattern recognition. It takes, 5,000 pick and rolls for you to become like good and efficient at pick and roll play. And so if that's the case, some guys are a little quicker than others. Maybe we're going to see Keyonte be on the front side of that, which would be great. But if you recall, I think I looked at De'Aaron Fox and a bunch of other those kind of guards that were similar to Kyrie, who've become point guards in their time in the NBA, and what is their efficiency. And it all turned out that by the 3rd or 4th year of the league, when they've suddenly got up to about 5,000 pick and rolls, do they suddenly become, that level. Keontae's run 1,400 pick and rolls this year already, which is just great. And if you want, and he's probably ranked, at one point he ranked last in the NBA of the top 90 pick and roll guys. So that's guys who've run about 480 pick and rolls this year. Keyonte ranks, let me find, I think he's in the 70s now, last time I checked. He's 85th out of 91. So he's near the bottom. That's exactly where you'd expect. And who's last in the NBA? Brandon Miller, who's a rookie. And then Denny Advida, then Killian Hayes, Jordan Poole, Malachi Flynn, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Keyonte George. So that's not surprising. And if you then start to look at year after year on these pick and roll guards, it takes time because it's pattern recognition. And this is exactly the process. You want to be, middle of the pack is you're over 1 point per possession, and you want to be over one. If you get to 1.1, you're one of the top guys in the NBA. Halliburton and Jason Tatum are the only guys over 1.1 in the NBA. And so you start to go look at this from multiple years and look at, the last 5 years of guys. I'm going to do it right now for you. And we'll look at De'Aaron Fox, if it pulls up quickly enough. And you'll see that what you have is this type of pattern recognition that Will's talking about. And so here's De'Aaron Fox. I just pulled him randomly, but his rookie year, De'Aaron Fox was 0.94, right about exactly where Keyonte is. Second year, 0.94, third year, 0.94. And then last year went to 1.06, one of the elite point guards in the NBA. This year, he's actually slipped, which is part of their problem. Their offense is off. But so let's go back to last year when Fox kind of had this great year. How many pick and rolls had he run? Well, he came into that season having run 6,000 pick and rolls at that point of his career. 6,000 pick and rolls. Devin Booker's another one that's interesting in the sense that he was not a point guard. 0.97, 1.03, 1.03, 1.03, 1.08 this year. He jumps it pretty quickly because he's such a great shooter, and now he's evolved into how he does it a little bit. And he's probably on that same level. So when you start to look at these guys, and we can pull a bunch of them. I mean, even somebody like Shea, who is now an MVP candidate, Shea goes in his first year, 0.94, 0.99. He actually slips to 0.90, goes back to 0.99 right on. And then this year explodes to 1.08 and is one of the top guards in the NBA. But how many pick and rolls did that take, right? We're back at this 6,000 number that were 6,600 before he ran this year of pick and rolls. So Keontae's having, a nice opportunity this year, but Keyonte should run, as I said, 1,400 pick and rolls. So he still needs 4 years at that level of pick and roll to get to 6,000, 5,000 pick and rolls that you need to have the pattern recognition. But hopefully that accelerates because of what Will Hardy's talking about with his brain. The last thing Will added is the next step for Keyonte is to have the confidence to tell everyone that he can see everything and recall it and has this brain and use that in a leadership role. And he's just not there yet because he's 20. But I thought that was a great sign. 9 turnovers in the first quarter is a lot. Our offense was putrid or paltry or whatever weird word I was using last night to talk about it, but it was bad. And we'll talk about that. And what are the 9 turnovers and where are they coming from and how can they be fixed? And there's actually a common thread to all of them. So we'll have that for you next as we continue on Locked On Jazz. Locked On Jazz today is brought to you by Intercap Lending. Steve Carter, he's simply the best. Brock Worthen, those guys do amazing work over at Intercap. It's actually really interesting for me because one of my friends is a builder in town and is working on a major project out in Eagle Mountain. He's probably my closest friend. And so just the other day, he ends up in a meeting with these guys. And it was really interesting because these are 2 of the people I'm probably most impressed by, right? So my best, closest friend in town, I think is one of the most genuine good people on the planet. And then I really believe that Intercap does amazing work and are good to their people. And Steve Carter, the work he does is just so great. So it was super cool to kind of get emails from both. Oh my gosh, I met, and everyone said the same thing about everyone. Let's go to like Steve Carter. He's our own personal loan officer at Intercap. And when you get the reviews, like from Reese Lindsay, Steve made the purchase of my home so easy and stress-free. I was kept in the loop. Steve was available whenever there was a question or concern. I will use Steve again in the future and recommend Steve to families and friends. I used Steve again recently with another home. And once again, Steve made the process easy and stress-free. Steve is professional, but he really cares and he shows it in a way that interacts with you like the clients. He will continue to look for him and refer to him with my family's friends. Steve Carter is our own personal loan officer, and he's just absolutely fabulous in all that he does. So please use Intercap Lending and interact with Steve Carter. He's our own personal loan officer, and we will connect you with him over at Intercap Lending. Intercap Lending, NMLS is for you. Steve Carter does a fabulous job, and I'm trying to find Steve Carter's phone number, and it is just escaping me. I thought I had moved this note for you. Email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com, and I will get you connected to Steve Carter. Sorry, I thought I had the number in front of me, and I did not, so my fault. Bad, David, bad. Today's show is also brought to you by Nissan, with 3 cars out there to make your life better and more exciting. Let's run through them. It's the Nissan Rogue, the 2024, perfect for city drives and great escapes, class exclusive Google built-in, always updating on almost anything. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Then there's the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. Has room up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, advanced availability 4x4, plus 284 horsepower and 6,000 pounds towing when adventure calls. The Pathfinder's there. And finally, there's the Nissan Armada. That will change what you expect out of a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 with first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger, explore further with the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, and the Nissan Armada on your next adventure. Shop nissan.usa.com. 9 turnovers in the first quarter is a hard way to win. So we will look at those. By the way, thank you for tuning in to Locked On Jazz. It's time to make the switch. If you are currently watching ESPN or Fox on your television and you're just tired of everyone yelling, you have turned down the volume, then make the switch to the Smart Sports. Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, local experts, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, 9 turnovers last night. Here they are in the first quarter. It's interesting. Some of them have a common thread. So the first one, like first play of the game, Colin Sexton drives, gets in the paint. Probably has been remembered that there's Victor Wembanyama around. He's actually beat Shohan. Collins is actually popped. Wembanyama's not really in the play, but it's first play of the game, or one of the first plays of the game. And Colin drags a pivot foot. Okay. Colin's pretty great. His scoring's been amazing. His energy's amazing. Will Hardy revealed that he wants to play all 82 and has made it perfectly clear. The amount he cheers on his team, he's a fabulous teammate. He turned the ball over. And he has really been pretty good at this. And he had 9 assists again last night, which is just amazing. And he only turned it over 3 times. He's had 7, 5, 8, 6, and 9 assists in his last 5 games. This is not a guy who used to pass the basketball. All right, second one, fast break. Keyonte tries to throw a lob to Lowry and overthrows it, and it's turnover. The only thing I would just say, like, early is these are both kind of loose. Like, they're loose. Like, Keontae's got to make that pass. Level of detail. Collins got to make sure he doesn't drag a pivot. Next one's Jeremy Sohan, who ends up with four or five steals in the game, reaches in, knocks away from John Collins in traffic. It becomes a jump ball, and they win the jump ball turnover. We get another fast break, and in that fast break, Keyonte gives it to John Collins in a terrible spot on the floor. Our spacing was not good, and John Collins runs into guys, and it's a turnover on Keyonte, I would think, but I think they gave it to John Collins, but I would have given that to Keyonte because he gave him to a ball where he didn't have a chance. Okay, Keyonte, 2 turnovers in the fast break, in my opinion there. Like, there's one reoccurring theme. The next one, Kyra Lewis comes into the game and throws a one-hand sloppy pass through the legs of Bryce Sensabaugh. Come on. That's the stuff that gets you so you don't play in the second half. It's too bad because Kyra really played very, very well on one of the road games, and then he didn't. He played 6 minutes and he turned the ball over and he didn't get back in the game. Then another fast break, not good spacing again. Sensabaugh's in the middle lane. He's being to Eurostep. He doesn't have a route to the basket. He scoops a pass to Lewis, who's 2 feet away from him. They could have played Red Rover, send Will Hardy right over, and it's a turnover. Some of this is guys who've never played together, right? Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyra Lewis Jr. have probably played 12 possessions together. They're just playing basketball out there. This is what happens when you start to get at this stage of a season with a team that's trying to develop youth and doesn't have a total order of what's going on. And, as Jordan plays less and Lowry plays less, it's only going to get worse. But you just have guys who've never played together, have no idea how to interact with each other, and don't really know what their next move is. And so, we're playing lineups that have just simply never played together before. And that matters. Like like Kyra Lewis, Bryce Sensabaugh have now played a grand total of like 73 possessions together, and we're in the minus 23. Like, this is not surprising. So that's the reality on that. Walker catches the ball in the post, tries to get himself settled, jumps into his positioning, but that moves his pivot feet, and that's a travel. And then Walker throws a pass over Lucas Sabanic's head. Again, 2 guys who've probably not played a lot together. But even this one's really goes back to just kind of not understanding who everybody is on the floor. Taylor Horton-Tucker throws Walker Kessler a pass. Walker's trailing the play, sprinting at full court, and Taylor Horton-Tucker throws Walker a pass that is literally like he catches it 25 feet, and I don't know what he's supposed to do with it. Like, he's running full steam. If he comes to a stop, he's going to travel. Walker, Taylor, and Lucas Samanic have played 46 possessions together all year. So then Walker doesn't know where Luka's going to be. They don't know each other, and Walker throws it away. Like, this is the reoccurring theme to these turnovers. When you start playing guys who've never played together, we can't dismiss like all the things that we actually know matter and then say, well, when our guys do it, it's not supposed to matter. So, continuity, playing together, those type of things do really, really matter. And suddenly when you have you suddenly are in a situation where you're not doing those things and it doesn't work, I think it shouldn't be we can't have it be that surprising. And then Kyra Lewis can't get an inbound in. We had 3 inbounds last night we couldn't get in. That's probably, at least in my opinion, not on the inbounder, but on the execution of the guys. It's symbolic of kind of also the way the game started. We're just understandably, the guys don't seem to be particularly engaged to start a game right now. Like, the opening juice is not there. You've lost a lot. You've lost 18 of 21. And there just doesn't seem to be a lot of eagerness to start a game right now. The only thing that's really disappointing to me about that is that Keyonte and Taylor Hendricks are starting right now. And so you would like to think that those 2 would bring juice, but I don't see either of those as particularly high energy, like raw energy type players. And then I don't see John that way. Colin I do, and Lowry's pretty calm. But the Jazz open, it was evident last night, just offensively, the Jazz opened the night 6 of, sometimes making buckets gets you going. Jazz offensive rating in the first quarter was a 56 last night. And then in the second quarter, it started to get a little bit better as they pulled it up to 118 and got rolling. And then they made some shots. And then It was a one in the third quarter, it was a 119. So it really looked good. And then the fourth quarter, it was a 123. So like you really did after the start play good basketball and move the ball and did what you're supposed to do. But that start just kind of unenergetic and lacking any juice. The one thing that is going on, I'll say this, I said this yesterday, and this is just long-term, and this is right now, and I thought Will made an interesting point about this. We're kind of executing defensively, like we're forcing people to take shots in the areas we want and things like that, but we're not impacting the game defensively. So last night, they end up taking 20 shots at the rim, which is a little bit more. We do a decent job of somewhat stopping corner threes, so they made 5 of them from the right corner. So we weren't as good at that last night, but we're not impacting. Guys are getting their shots in rhythm. They're not off pace. The passes are coming from where they're supposed to. We're except for last night, we're generally forcing a low turnover forcing team. And so you're not impacting the game. You're not impacting routes. You're not impacting things. And that's letting guys get pretty good looks, rhythm looks. And then the worst 3-point shooting team in the league last night went 16 of 33 from 3. So that, starts are obviously an issue, and trying to find a way to find some gumption in the final 8-9 games of the year where we're not going to be favored in any of them the rest of the way. So we'll see. I was going to just not shave till we won, but I might have to abandon that. I was not. That was kind of a joke. I just haven't shaved. All right. 8th pick of the draft. Is that really in play for the Utah Jazz? We'll touch on it when we come back next, or as we continue on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by your sports destination, Amazon Fire TV. Go to amazon.com/lockedonfiretv to find out more. But Fire TV is your destination for sports, for live games, to highlights, to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire Stick that can plug in to your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies, TVs, episodes, as well as free and live TV. That's what I have. I have the Amazon Fire Stick right over here in my thing, and then I can watch Locked on Sports or opening weekend of baseball or college basketball tournament. You're going to have it on Fire TV. Here's what Fire TV is. They've recently created Fire TV channels to deliver constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. So that includes us at Locked On, most of the other big league sports, college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, lots more, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me, it's great. Locked On Sports Today is there as well. So it's amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Next episode of today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Convenient, flexible online therapy. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. People talk about BetterHelp and therapy. What I always think about is the fact that it is performance enhancing for your brain. That's why I did concentration meditation this morning. I was trying to improve the focus of my brain. And you guys who spend 30 minutes with me every day know that that's probably a good idea for me. So sometimes we have things that are going on. We find ourselves in reoccurring habits. We find ourselves in the same quandary we were in before, and we're wondering why. So this is where therapy can become very, very important. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have some type of issue that we want to straighten out. And so if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. BetterHelp.com/lockedonnba. Well, is it possible the Utah Jazz are about to end up with the 8th pick of the NBA draft? Originally, it was a question of whether we could get to 10. Well, here's what's happened right now. And that is that the Memphis Grizzlies are sitting at 7 at 24-49. And the big number, honestly, is wins, because none of these teams are really trying to win. Memphis has lost 2 in a row. Brooklyn is trying to win. They won their 28th game of the season last night. We have won 29. We will not be favored in another game all season long. Brooklyn's pick goes to Houston. Brooklyn is, under Kevin Ollie, is trying to prove that they are not the team that just lost 6 in a row. And they have remaining games of, you decide which of these are possible wins. They play at home against Chicago. They play the Lakers, probably not. They play Indiana back-to-back. Then they play Detroit, maybe. Then they play Sacramento. Then they play Toronto, who is generally trying to lose to keep their pick. And then they're at New York and at Philly. So there is a real chance they could win against Chicago, Detroit, or Toronto And if they were to get 2 of those, they would get to 30 wins. And the Jazz are currently sitting at 29. If they win 3 of those, they go to 31. And we're sitting at 29. And if you have not done this yet, the Utah Jazz schedule the rest of the way does not have a lot of W's on it. In fact, it might not have any. If you lose to the San Antonio Spurs at home in a game which you're down by 8 all the time and Lowry plays 40-plus minutes, and I don't know how many more times Lowry's playing 40-plus minutes, we have Houston, at Sacramento, home against Cleveland, at Clippers, at Warriors, home against Nuggets, home against Rockets, at Clippers, at Warriors. Be surprised if we got more than 1. So I think the Jazz number is going to be 30. If Brooklyn wins 2 more games, we have a part of 8. If they win 3 more games, we are 8. The bigger news is that Atlanta keeps winning and is now at 33 wins, and there's 0 chance we can catch that. So the Jazz have really just about solidified the fact they're going to get their draft pick. Remember, if we were at 10, there was a 25% chance that we were going to not get our pick. But by being at 9, there's about a 97% chance, I think it is now, that we're secured to at least have a pick in the draft. We also, as of right now, by the way, have the 27th pick from Oklahoma City. And then the Detroit losing 8 in a row has made it so that Washington has got a better record. So we now have the 32nd pick as well. So we're 32, 27, and 9 as of right now. So it makes it for an interesting little June for us to be covering all that. On the other end of things, on the playoff race, which is just fascinating, a lot of interesting things happened last night. The Warriors won, they were desperately in need, despite Draymond Green getting ejected early in the game. But the Rockets came from behind to beat Oklahoma City 132-126 in overtime. I'm going to have to watch that game today. And so they are still on the heels of the Warriors, 1 game back. The Lakers won again. They're playing very well right now. They have clicked in. They're beginning to look like you would not want to see them at any point. They are 2 games ahead of the Warriors, 2.5, and they are now knocking on the back of the door of the Kings, only a game and a half backs. Kings did not play last night. The Suns got a monster win in Denver, 104-97, as Jamal Murray didn't play, but still Phoenix needed that win badly. Royce O'Neal gave them 7 rebounds and some nice minutes late as they went small and didn't have Jurkic in that game. And the Suns got the win, and then the Mavericks, who've been very, very good. The other thing that happened last night was top of the standings. Denver lost. Minnesota won. Oklahoma City lost. Minnesota's won 3 in a row without Karl-Anthony Towns. I told you I thought they'd be fine without Karl-Anthony Towns. Not maybe playoff fine, but rest of the regular season fine. And Minnesota is now tied with Oklahoma City at 50-22, and Denver's just a half game behind. It is going to be fascinating to see who ends up. If you go to playoffstatus.com, which is a nice site, and giving them some love, Basketball Reference gets love. Right now, it's projected as the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, 42% to the Nuggets, 36% to the Timberwolves, 22% to the Thunder. So pretty fascinating. And the number 2, who gets the number 2 seed is almost even across the board, as is who gets the 3, though Denver less likely to get the 3. So there's a chance the Thunder could really slip to 3. Then they end up with 6 against Dallas. And we've talked about that being interesting. The Warriors are still a 64% chance of the 10th seed, and a 13% chance of the 11th seed. So the Rockets' quest, they've won 10 straight. They'll be in here on Friday, is probably still a really, really big long shot for them to try to pull off. But they have certainly made it awfully exciting to see what happens. And the other side is whether I think that's most fascinating is where the Kings end up in all of this. The Kings are suddenly having about a 35% chance that they are going to slip to 8 or lower. And if that's the case, then they have a real legitimate chance of not making the playoffs. The Suns are the other one that's fascinating because the Suns are at a 64% chance of 8 or lower. And then the way the Lakers are playing, I don't think anyone wants to be in a do-or-die game against the Lakers. I'm assuming the Lakers will beat the Warriors or the Rockets in a one or done, but who knows? And then you're playing the Lakers to try to stay alive. You're trying to knock LeBron out. I don't want any part of that if I'm any of those teams. This is going to be really incredible for us to watch, and then from a Jazz standpoint, we may be able to get to 8. All right, that's what I got for you on Locked On Jazz today. Jazz Plus has a ton of content for you. And then also I'm getting reports right now. Let me just give you guys, this is like how it comes across to me in the morning. Here's what's coming up on Locked On Sports today. you probably have you should hear UConn later today, along with the Tar Heels and the University of Arizona. So a bunch of shows on Locked On Sports today from the college channels. Over on the ACC, we've got the Wolfpack coming at you and the Blue Devils, and so a lot of fun games. And in the NBA, they'll have the Warriors postcast hitting Locked On Sports today for you as well. The Warriors' big win. So all that up on Locked On Sports today. We'll send you there now on your first ever 24/7 national streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Also available for you on Amazon Fire TV. Go check it out. It is Locked On Sports Today. Have a great one.